I'm Chris McFadden, and as always, I'm joined by my data science co-hosts, Andy and Ishbel. How are you?
Great, thanks. As you said, enjoying the weather in sunny Scotland at the moment, so yeah.
Yeah, we're getting carried
It's
away. I was getting
nice.
slagged before and about my average tan that I might have gathered over the weekend and forgot to shave again.
You're doing very well. I'm definitely on the pale side, despite having just returned from Turkey. So we'll see. We'll see how my summer goes. I know.
We'll get to that. I heard it was a bit of an eventful trip for you.
Oh, it was. It was a whole day in hospital. As you do on holiday with the kids, but hey.
And on today's episode, we're joined by the director of GenAI at GSK, Dilshat Uteshev. Dilshat, it's great to have you on the show. How are you doing?
Oh, yeah, all good, thank you. Yeah, also enjoying the sunny days in Glasgow. Yeah.
Dilshat, you're obviously, I think your team mostly are based in London, but you're based in Glasgow yourself. How long is it you've been in Scotland?
Yeah, so actually that's a bit of an exception rather than a rule here. I joined GSK during the pandemic times. And that time, obviously, the office was closed, so which is why I started working from Glasgow. So my original intention was to move to London, but then, yeah, I kind of started liking Glasgow, so I couldn't.
You enjoyed it too much, the weather?
Exactly. So actually, I've been here like for 5 years now. And yeah, I'm like the only from my team who is working from Glasgow, so I'm still commuting once or twice a month to see my team, and yeah, to grab a coffee, to grab a pint. So overall, yeah, I mean, working remotely, I think became a kind of a normal to me. I can when I'm in the office, actually, I think I'm less productive than when I'm at home.
Very interesting. Oh, we can get chatting about that. Well, not good. It's good to have you. As always, we kind of let our listeners get a bit of an intro and background to our guest, how they became a data scientist, what their current role is as an AI leader now in the company that they work for. Do you want to give us a bit of an intro to yourself then?
Yeah, sure. So I think in general, I've been specializing in NLP before this, Gen AI boom happened in like last year, right? So I think so I was always connected to the natural language processing. So in like leveraging machine learning and AI techniques to process, different documents and so on and so forth to make some business value. So my journey actually started when I worked in. So I'm originally from Kazakhstan. So I worked there in telecom sector, in banking sector. Then I moved to Accenture. So I joined Accenture in Latvian branch and was leading the NLP team over there. We have been basically completing a number of different projects for various clients. The idea of which was connected to the document processing, parsing, information retrieval, classification, and so on and so forth. So all this NLP related stuff. I was also actually quite interested that time in the imaging analysis, in the computer vision, and so on and so forth. But then I think around those times, Transformers were published, I think in 2017 or so. So Transformers is basically like a, origin for GPT. So it's T in this GPT, right? And I think that was a very, I would say, breakthrough paper, which helped a lot to, to kind of like to take NLP to the next level, because I think there was a time when it was kind of stagnating in a sense, using the like LSTM and all this kind of recurrent neural networks, and then yeah, basically just going on this NLP move, I joined JP Morgan here in Glasgow, and this is how I moved to the UK. So now I'm GSK. At GSK, actually, prior to my current role, I was leading the data science and engineering teams. Also focusing, so not just on NLP stuff, but also like on all sort of data engineering and data science stuff, including, sales prediction modeling, marketing mix modeling. But also in addition to that, we were analyzing the content that we are sending to different healthcare professionals, how it's perceived, what's the feedback, and so on and so forth. And then generative AI was published, right? So, and in GSK, obviously, as any big company, there was a certain reaction to this mega trend. So how do we do about it? Like, what do we do about it? And the decision was to kind of forge a team of talents within the GSK for like to lead like a number of different projects. So I joined one of those teams, and in the position of director, so responsible mainly on the technical stuff. And now, yeah, so really excited to be honest, like in this particular role, working with generative AI technology. I think deploying some of the non-obvious solutions, leveraging this technology to understand, just because what we see now is like really available on the surface, but when you go like one level down, what else you can do about it, like by implementing the multi-agent, the self-reflection, so basically trying to unleash these boundaries of this technology, because it's pretty new, and it was like like I always compare it with the wave that we had in 2000s or something, when internet became kind of popular. Also with a massive wave of as a big mega trend, and huge, like a number of technologies were developed. So the same here. I think there are a few more years definitely that will be a hot topic among AI community. So yeah, so that's kind of my background. I feel like it brought me to this, because I wasn't liking programming like all my life, to be honest. I was doing the Python development because any data scientist has to do that to make things ready. But now having GenAI, actually, all you need to do is just explain what you need, and it can write some quite decent code for you, right? So yeah,
really cool background, Dilshat. There's tons of interesting stuff you've done there. Can I ask a bit of maybe a philosophical question then? You mentioned a comparison there to like the boom of the internet with generative AI. How transformative do you view this new capability? Because like you said, you've got a lot of experience in NLP. You've been working in data science for a long time. We seem to be, there's people on a spectrum, right? Some people think this is like, what is it, Sundar Pichai's compared it to electricity or something. And then you have some people who are a bit more skeptical. I'm probably more in the middle. Where do you sit on that? Like, how transformative do you think generative AI is, and how much is it just evolution of an existing capability?
So to me, it's difficult to say concrete, because at the moment, generative AI to me is still like being researched and explored area, right? So it's still not fully available to the extent that it can be. So what we see now, I think, is like just the top of the iceberg, I would say. This is my view. So ChatGPT, and actually there are many researchers, like if you compare now, like I remember when GPT-3 was published. Do you remember that day? So I was like, wow, like it's next level thing, right? So you can ask to write an essay for you. So, and actually that time I was doing my MBA, right? And it was such a good thing to rephrase some of or like to elaborate. But now, after GPT-4, when I look at GPT-3, I see how dumb GPT-3 was, right? And it's just like in 1 year. So, and what we hear like from Sam Altman and others, research like GenAI leaders, that GPT-5, when it will arrive, GPT-4 will look like GPT-3 now. And it's difficult to imagine at this point, because like I feel like GPT-4 is quite capable, especially like when you have this function calling and all these kind of additional things that allows you to make them more up to date, to bring in this information to the API, and it can quickly process it. I think the most important capability to me is like ability to reason. So one of the most important capabilities is like ability to reason, and the reasoning capability within GPT-4 is like really good. Like if you can, hedge it in a proper way. So to me, it's definitely the beginning of a big era of Gen AI. Like this is how I see it. Like I see that even it changes the lives of like my parents, for example. You take a picture like in their fridge, for example, like what can I cook today? And there are tons of recipes. Like it just does it. Or for example, I mean, for me personally, I do use like Copilot like Microsoft Copilot, which is like effectively the same technology, but just different application of it. And Copilot, for example, for any meetings that you attend, it just creates the very good notes for you, right? Emails, so you can draft emails. Like you don't spend like previously, like especially when you write some long emails for senior leadership team, you have to be really thoughtful about the words you choose, and usually you may spend like quite a time, right, to come up with some final draft. Here, like it takes seconds. So I mean, it's like just a massive save of time, right? Presentations, like you just create like some, in Word file, you just create some sketch of what you want to do. You click a button, you get like a full presentation created for you with images. And then you can interact with this. You can say like, can you please make it less wordy? Boom. Can you make it more wordy? Can you detail this point? Can you detail that point? I mean, to me, like it already saves a lot of my time. Now, like when I come to my, so I mean, and actually what is interesting that it not only, so at the moment I see that the main applications of it is being by developers, like GitHub Copilot or all these kind of multi-agents. They're all focusing on the way how to create the code, how to make it better, how to run. And this is kind of clear to me because developers are owning this technology and we're trying to make our lives easier first.
Yeah.
But if you think about business, there are so many applications of it. And obviously like it all depends on us, on people who can enable it. Unfortunately, some people, they think that ChatGPT is all you can do. But no, ChatGPT is just like one thing. What if you have this like there's GPTs when it was published? That's also quite a hype, right? So that you can create your own, and it can behave like you want it. So
there's lots.
I think what we see now is just like a few applications. Exactly.
Yeah,
I think there's a lot more coming.
You see a lot of potential. No, that's good. Also, you mentioned, do you remember when ChatGPT was launched? It was launched on my birthday, 2022, so 30th of November. So I always remember that. That was my birthday present from Sam Altman, which was very nice. No, great. I think we'll maybe ask some questions about GenAI and your role and in your domain. Ishbel or Chris, you want to pick up on that?
Yeah, so obviously like we've talked about like obviously the productivity and efficiency benefits it's got more generally, but like in terms of like pharma in general or other kind of life sciences, where do you see the biggest benefits there?
So I think, so at the moment, basically, just because it's like GenAI is really effectively a text processing technology, right? Like so at the moment, there are multimodality thing is being developed, so where you can do the images, sound, like voice, and so on and so forth, but it's all originated from the text, and I think and even the text capabilities of it wasn't properly explored and applied yet. So I think, to me, at the moment, in life sciences, I think there are two main territories where it can definitely be applied. So if you think about the R&D, right, in pharmaceutical industry, so some of the, I mean, I'm not involved in that space like directly, so I'm more close to the, like something around it. So basically like regulatory documents, for example, or content generation or document processing. So something close to the text. But obviously, I was into a few projects when you, for example, you deal with some protein sequences. So, I mean, I may, use some wrong words here, but the point is that the protein sequence is a sequence of amino acids, if I'm not mistaken. So if you think about that, what is the sentence? Sentence is the sequence of words, and words is a sequence of letters, right? You can apply the same rule to any other sequence of other entities. Yeah, sequence of protein, like as I said, like protein is a sequence of amino acids. So, and basically this kind of technology, which is capable to predict the next letter or the next word, is quite applicable to any sequential entities in this area, right? So this is where I think it can be definitely applied. And I saw like there was a paper like recently published by AlphaFold, I think by Google DeepMind, so the AlphaFold, I think, where they claim that, they brought this next level thing using GenAI technology, which now is able to analyze this 3D protein structure or DNA or something like this. So, and I mean, when I read that, it sounds fascinating because I know how much time or how much experts or how much money you need to, deliver high quality products right on the market. And having these kind of technologies, they will definitely just accelerate that. They will make some work for humans, for experts, so they can not start from zero, but start from one, right? So they don't need to, think to and spend their time on collecting some stuff and running these expensive experiments when they can get something which is simulated or generated by AI technologies and definitely bring that to the next level. So to me, that's obviously like the most obvious application of it in life sciences. But there's also like another big part of it, right? Which is like document generation, like content generation. So there are multiple, and I think it's not just applied to life sciences, it's applied to any industry, like HR, banking, and others, right? So like text is everywhere now. This is the only way how people communicate with each other. These are the standards, and ability to make it better, make it faster, make it higher quality.
I found myself, I was having a look, just obviously having a look into life sciences and pharma in advance of this chat, and looking at the McKinsey report, it was talking about even things like it can help communicate between different areas of that world to take really complex information and then summarize it for people that are further down the line that are going to be applying that information. So it's I think even from that aspect, it's like quick learning. It can summarize in such a concise way. So I guess that's
Exactly. So I think ability to summarize, and also what is interesting is when first these multi-agents, they came to the picture, I think it was last year, the end of last year. So I was like, okay, but you already have GPT. So what else do you need? And actually, and I think I found there's a very good article saying that actually, if you ask 3 different people to summarize exactly the same book, they will summarize, you will get 3 different summaries. Because each person has their own life, have their own experience, vision, expertise. So they will identify those aspects, because when you summarize, you definitely just list out some of the most important pieces of the text. And something is important for me, which may not be important, for example, for Chris. And so, which is why there are multiple perspectives. And now, if you think, okay, what if you can bring more agents who can do that for you? And out of these summaries, you click summary. So I mean, how this simple task, just summarize something, might be reviewed depending on the context and application of it, right? So I think that's something that I think is still to explore, right? Because I think at the moment this field and these kind of simple capabilities, they're not still, I don't think that they're still used to the extent that they can be utilized by business.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think there's a long way for adoption to go. And if I think about, in some legacy or older sort of areas like finance, etc., we're still working with technology that's 10, 15 years old. So I imagine that in 10, 15, 20 years, we'll still be talking about, adopting GPT-3, GPT-4 in many organizations. So yeah, I agree. There's a long way to go. Super interesting all the stuff you mentioned about treating DNA as a sentence. I was just looking up there, sort of genomic LLMs, they call it, or DNA LLMs. That's quite interesting. So do you also keep it in touch with the sort of the releases from, say, other providers? So there's Microsoft have released BioGPT a while ago. Do you kind of look at tools like that, or do you read stuff in-house, or how do you kind of explore, your tech stack and what to use? How do you keep on top of such a fast-moving field?
So I think this is one of the topics that I can't fully discuss, so I mean, definitely, I personally, I do read, and the group of GenAI enthusiasts in our company, they also do read, these different models that are, becoming available. Using them or not using them, I think there are also like, so I mean, to be honest, I would switch to a new, like for example, at the moment, let's say GPT-4 model is obviously the favorite, right? So why would I switch to another model? I think there could be like one or two reasons, maybe. So one reason is like, maybe GPT-4 is expensive and you want to try something, cheaper.
Yep.
So that could be one reason. But again, like expensiveness, like it depends on what value do you generate. Like if you generate like a few millions of savings by spending like £10, I think that it's like a no-brainer, right?
Yep.
Second, the reason why I would do that maybe is like for, if, for example, GPT-4 model is not capable to do my task. For example, it's not as specialized as BioGPT in the field of healthcare, for example. I mean, I haven't tried BioGPT myself, but I can assume that it may happen. But is it really the case? I mean, to be honest, like in my experience so far, I haven't seen any cases yet. I mean, maybe I will see at some point where GPT-4 is not capable. So I think GPT-4 itself, if you just take GPT-4 model, just a single model, and then you try some, yes, maybe that's not. But if you try to build some like agents with self-reflection or with other like React frameworks and stuff, it becomes much smarter. And actually, there are many research that shows, like for example, like even like just instead of using zero shot, if you use the few shot prompting, you already boost your accuracy. If you then on top of that you add self-reflection, it boosts more. If you now add like more agents to help it, so instead of using one, you have multi-agents, it boosts even more, and so on and so forth. And then if you add this function calling and all this API and all this RAG application, RAG actually it's also opened like a huge, I think, opportunities for many firms when you can build this so-called long-term memory for these models, right? Once you bring this all tools together, I can't imagine when I will, switch to another model, to be honest. So unless that the other model is very specific, for example, like this, like based, like trained on, something like that, which, the GPT-4 model may not fully understand because the hallucination here might be dramatic, right? So you really want to use something that really understands what it deals with. So that may be the only reason I would switch. But in general, I think so far I didn't see such a demand.
No, it makes a lot of sense.
When we chat about, you mentioned obviously you ran the data science and engineering team at GSK, and then you had an NLP background that's moved you into this new role, which would be GenAI focused, and I'd imagine quite R&D focused. But what is your approach to kind of AI leadership? So am I right in saying you've got a team of engineers that work for you at the moment, developing and looking at integrating GenAI into your products and service areas?
Yeah. So
how would you then, for instance, so say you've got data scientists or GenAI engineers that are working for you at the moment that didn't have that NLP background, what's your kind of evolution plan for the team to kind of bridge that skills gap? Or is it actually specifically you've put together a team that have got that research and NLP focused experience that you think are naturally going to be able to upskill quicker?
So yeah, I think that's a very good question. I think at the moment we live at the time when you don't know which skill set you want to invest in, right? I mean, like I think a year ago, everybody was telling about prompt engineer. Like, is the role we need to hire prompt engineers. Now, prompt engineer seems to be a bit outdated role already, just in 1 year. So, I mean, really, because like it's so difficult to predict. So, like when I'm thinking about my kids, so they're growing, and I'm thinking, what are they going to learn? Obviously, like 10 years ago, I would tell that they need to be they need to learn computer science. That's no brainer for me. But now computer science is not a topic anymore, like at all. So about the team, I would say I'm always trying. So obviously there are multiple roles, right? Like, and I think some of the roles which for me are still quite important and relevant, like is data engineers. So data engineers is a kind of especially in the GenAI era, the way how the data is organized, the way how it's processed, the way how you made it available, and so on and so forth. And there are multiple technologies now evolving on how to parse the data. If you deal with some textual elements, how to interpret that data, and so on and so forth. So data engineers, they now need to acquire this additional, skill set of, I would call them GenAI data engineers, because the way how data should be prepared for GenAI technologies is slightly different now, right? So, so that's one thing. So, which is why that's kind of, for me, a very important part of team. However, data science or GenAI engineer or ML engineer. So to me now, it's like I'm always encouraging people to learn and apply new technologies, especially it was always my approach, but especially now when every day something new comes, right? I really want to make sure that we are on the top of it. So if we see that there is a new technology coming in, how will it affect us in 3 months, in 6 months, in 1 year time? What kind of skill set do we need to adopt this technology now, or shall we just wait until somebody adopts it and we will see and be the fast followers? I mean, that's the kind of the way where we are. Like, I'm trying to keep my team in, so I'm trying to motivate them and encourage them to apply new technologies. Don't hesitate, run it, experiment, and see, how well it works for us. But I think on top of that, the developers, the full stack developers, like Python developers or any other language developers, I think it's also like a special part of the team who I think this role is still to me important, because there are so many technologies, I agree, but ability to put these technologies to work together still requires some good engineering understanding, right? So some good engineering skills. So but also, like, I think this is where I encourage this team to understand more about GenAI technology itself. Like, for example, how your software, like, for example, like DevOps, how DevOps will now be transformed, having in mind that you have this GenAI LLM ops thing, right? So coming. So how you would connect these two things, how you want to make sure that, the model that you switch from one model to another, it's not just like switching from one release of a certain feature to another. It's a complete, like, you swap the brain, and it may affect affect the whole application completely. How would you do that in a thoughtful way so that you don't lose the track of things? So that's kind of, to be honest, interesting area to be in, and I think I just encourage my team to learn more about this, to understand more about that, how it works, how we should adopt it, and so on and so forth. But also, it's very important, especially for data scientists working in GenAI field, is to know the foundations of this, like where it's coming from, because knowing that, you can understand certain behaviors. So, for example, so if you think about GPT model, it's what it does, it's just really predicting the next word. And it can predict it in multiple ways. It creates like a whole distribution over many words, and then it picks up something, and there is a different hyperparameters like temperature, top P, and so on and so forth. Many users, they simply don't know what is it and how to deal with it. They just go with default ones, and then they complain about creativity. But it's like, if you are kind of aware of the foundations, then obviously you can tune the things just a few seconds, and it will sound like a magic for others. So, I mean, understanding these foundations is definitely important. Knowing all these foundational papers, like attention is all you need, GPT, GPT-2, BERT models, and all this kind of stuff. And especially now, like Gemini, like developed by Google, what's behind it? So it uses slightly different technologies. How it's different? What's the advancement? When would you need Gemini? When would you need like GPT, or on so on and so forth? I think these kind of details, they're important for, especially, I think it's mainly for maybe junior data scientists who are coming to this. The senior ones, I assume, like, they obviously acknowledge this, and because it's all kind of were happening in front of our eyes, right?
Yeah. So do you agree or disagree with Jensen Huang when he said we shouldn't learn programming anymore? What do you think of that?
So I think, I mean, to be honest, like I tried one open source project, I think, which is called Meta GPT or something. And that was interesting. All you need to do, you just write the requirement, like the business state, like the business problem statement. So for example, I want to create a game, T48, and you describe what needs to happen with that game so that it's like 4x4 cube, and you need to move different, squares and so on and so forth. Click enter, and it just create the code with unit tests, with all these type hints. I mean, with no technical depth, right? So I mean, like when you work with humans, so when you work with like people, obviously when you run some quick projects, there is a huge technical depth. So some unit tests are missing, some type hints are missing, and so on and so forth. Some documentation is missing. Here, like it just comes for free, and you can define the budget. So for example, you have $5. So it's like, okay, I can only spend $5 for this problem statement. So this platform, it kind of understands how many calls it can make to T4, and depending on that, it kind of construct the whole code first. It goes through the process of creating and eventually you receive something that is working. Maybe not completely working, but it's a very good skeleton, very good start. I assume these technologies will only evolve. I mean, just what we have now already promising, what we'll see tomorrow, it will be unbelievable. So which is why I think all we need to do is now to train our English. Like, English language will become a programming language, I think, at some point. That's for sure.
See, on the other, obviously you talked a lot about like the positives and obviously like the efficiencies and everything. But on the other side, like are there any kind of major challenges that you yourself have like had to overcome within your team, like maybe with your more junior members, or that you envisage kind of going forward that you think we would need to be aware of?
So just to play that back, so do you mean like any challenges I said with what exactly?
Well, it could be anything. It could be accuracy. It could be like the ethics, data, GDPR. So there's lots of kind of aspects. We can't just use the tools that are there. We've got these considerations to put in place. So I just wondered if there was anything around that you would foresee as being.
Yeah, exactly. I think to be honest, the responsible AI is a big thing, and obviously, and there are many components to it, right? Like ethics, how it's used, how you make sure that the data is not leaked, how do you make sure that the way how generative AI processes information is unbiased. I mean, there are multiple things, and I think all of us have been like, evidence of all these scandals around like Google Gemini, I think, when it was published for the first time. I mean, that was really, so because, and I think it's clear why it's happening because of the way how this model are trained. They are trained on the historical data from internet. You don't need to go too far. You go to internet, to any forum, and you will see many of such, unethical behaviors. And that's kind of the thing. So, which is why when we train these kind of models, all this needs to be properly taken into account. How to do that properly? I think GPT-4, I mean, OpenAI, I think does it like in a good way. So I think they are kind of succeeding, but still sometimes you can feel that, they either overdo it or they underdo it. There are many aspects which you need to be really mindful about. So, but also, so it's really interesting the way how it's all progressing now. I think attempts from like a few leaders on this market, like to lead this or to take more control of this, to make it more available for people is really important. So I have recently spoken to my neighbor. So he's a screenwriter. He's been a screenwriter like for many years. He's already almost retired. So he's 70, 75. And he said that deal is interesting that whenever so previously he had he writes some drafts, then he sent this draft to some, his lead or some director who reviews that draft. They send back some questions and then they have a call. They discuss some element because like screenwriting is like writing a book. When you create some character or some situation, sometimes you just put some, stuff like some elements over there, but then you need to discuss. And this human emergence is something that will never be achieved by computers. So what we can come to by just having a conversation like this, we will never achieve that if in your conversation with any GenAI tools, I think. I mean, who knows? Maybe in a few years I'll be wrong and AGI, but I don't think so. Ability to create new things, to invent new things, to think out of the box. So all this kind of stuff. And what was interesting that his director was replaced by a young specialist, and she was using GPT a lot. And instead of reviewing this draft herself, she was passing it through this model.
Yeah.
And their conversation, instead of being like a natural human conversation, became like a conversation between human and machine. If you think about it, so human, machine, human. And that's really broke the whole kind of concept of creating the proper screen, like the proper laws. So yeah, the proper. So that was interesting example. I have never thought about this, but this is where actually the AI should be used responsibly. So while it opens some doors, it shouldn't close the doors for those, for those processes which requires human intervention, human interactions. But how to differentiate that, how to identify that? So it's also difficult, right? So so that's a big topic to me as well, to be honest.
Yeah, it's a huge topic. Do you think there's something about, remembering that these things are tools? Because some people anthropomorphize them, and like you're saying, they sort of assume it's another person almost, and that I think can sometimes lead you down the path. Whereas you mentioned at the beginning, you have to actually think quite a lot about how to use these things. You can't just, by default. You can get a lot done by default, but do you think there's something in that? We have to remember they're tools and not little humans trapped in a box somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a bit more than just a tool, right? Like if I would admit that this technology, like to me, I mean, I know, it's really fascinating. Like when I don't remember when I read the book last time now. I mean, go to not the book, I mean, some professional books or something. Just ask, can you please give me some, most important bullet points from this book? What can I apply? How can I apply this in my work? This is like, you describe your work situation, you describe some reference to the books. I mean, it just speed up the whole life for you now, so that you don't spend your time and you save your time. So which is why for me, it's like more than a tool, but obviously it's just a technology. And to me, it's important, like in any application that I develop, I always make sure that there is a human in the loop, like somebody who needs to review the content, somebody who needs to review the process, somebody who needs to validate the accuracy, and so on and so forth. So this all should be in place. But also, I think the way how this technology influenced the technical community, like it's just drastically changed the whole. I think this is the time when the mindset should be changed, especially in the IT leaders. So when I speak to our CTO or others, I hear this vibe. So I mean, like, obviously people who previously used Excel to work with big data, coming to the stage when, like, you don't even now need to train the models. You can just create 1-2 examples, use this few shot prompting, and boom, it's working. So like previously I had to train a huge BERT model, like with many training examples for sentiment analysis. Yet to identify if the news is positive or negative. Now I just go and ask GPT, and it tells me, like, with 0 shot, like with a pretty high accuracy. So that's obviously like the next level thing. But also, obviously, everything needs to be validated, right? At least at the time being, because, and actually, as we all see, like, there are many biases, there are many hallucinations that are happening. While you can control it through a number of different technologies, as I said, like RAG, hyperparameters, and so on and so forth, you still, need to be really curious, need to be really conscious about what is being there. So yeah, I mean, but this definitely will change the way we think now, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, sorry, Bill.
No, I was going to say, so I know this is maybe not exactly your area of expertise exactly, but I was thinking like, you know, going far into the future and thinking about what AI could do in terms of like medical diagnosis, for example. So like, do you think that at some point in the future, with the accuracy that we could get from AI versus humans at looking at images, for example, and like microscopic nuances between, you know, whatever it is, you know, I'm not going to say I know about any genetic data, but do you think that we could get to the point where we would be going to the AI answer rather than a human expertise at any point?
Yeah, that sounds like scary, right? I mean, like,
Yeah.
if somebody, yeah, if machine will diagnose you, I mean, I don't know, like in the future, I mean, yeah, I think, to be honest, like, I really like fantasy movies, right? Like, and this is because where these kind of things are happening. So, for example, if you now remember about, like, we call this I, Robot with Will Smith, for example. I don't know if you watched that.
Mhm.
Or like Matrix. I mean, some of the things when you look at there and like, I think there was a very good example. So in I, Robot, so the whole movie is like around a certain situation which happened to Will Smith when he and his, I think there was like, he was trying to rescue like a dad and his son, right?
I just remember they all tried to kill him. Did they not? Or are they trying to kill
Oh
everyone?
no, but at the beginning, he tries to save a child's life.
Right, okay.
Exactly. And instead of
in the
saving
car
the
that's
child's
underwater.
life,
Yeah.
the machine saved his dad's life or himself, something like this. Will Smith, I think, and his son, right? This is what happened.
I think so, but yeah, the robot saves Will Smith's life because he's got a higher likelihood of surviving.
Exactly.
Right, yeah.
This is where this diagnosis by machine happens, right? So machine, they don't have emotions, they don't have
No.
you know, this kind of. So even if your child has 11% less likelihood to survive, as a human being, you will still, you know, try to rescue the child, right? I mean, like just this in our DNA code. In there, it's all about it's all about numbers. And somebody actually run this experiment with GPT-4. They asked, like, what would you do in the following situation? And described everything that was in that stage of the movie. And it also said, like, I will save a dad, like an adult.
Yeah.
So it just, I mean, I know, like, if you do it now, I mean, like, I remember, like, I saw that. I mean, it was just interesting experiment in general because it's really close to the real life, right? In a sense, because we can discuss this like a lot, but when you have these clear examples, it just, you know, answers all the questions. So which is why I think answering your question on that is, I mean, it's scary.
Yeah.
I don't want machines to make decisions that, you know, needs to be made by humans.
But if you think about it, you could have, you know, AI that's got really the knowledge of, you know, however unlimited amount of experts, where, you know, someone who's doing a diagnosis, they've only got their experience. Whereas if you were looking for an AI representation, they're pulling, you know, many resources together. They could therefore be more qualified than your one or couple of medical experts. Is, you know, so it could be that this is a good thing, not necessarily, okay, we're going to choose to save grown-ups over children or save the money from a building on fire instead of the babies, you know. So like, I know obviously there's that decision, but I think from coming at it from a perspective of who's got the best knowledge at some point in the future, it could be AI.
But it's not a knowledge question, right? That was a morality question.
Yes, well,
It's interesting.
Yeah, but
it's a really good question.
Yeah, I think like ability to reason. Yeah, so I mean, obviously, when you see some diagnosis made, I mean, I think there was actually a very good example as well on this, just to support why AI is kind of smarter, like as you just explained, right? Have you seen that, like in articles, like a lady, so basically a woman, she had a baby and she was trying to understand what is diagnosis, like so she was sick or something.
A few things like this, yeah.
Yeah, so she has encountered, like she has actually asked like so many doctors, like in 3 years, and nobody was able to diagnose the problem properly. And all she did, she just uploaded all the materials she had into ChatGPT and asked it, can you tell me what's the diagnosis? And it diagnosed it correctly.
So
that's a story. That's a life-changing story. I mean, that's exactly. And now it supports what you're saying. So I mean, you know,
there's a person's going to say, oh, this is not probable. This is not probable. It's maybe not able to see the patterns in all these different things, or they didn't have, you know, yeah, they had 90% of the story. So yeah, there's such a potential there.
Yeah, AI obviously is much better in generating complex information, like a lot of complex data. You want to go finding these connections and reason about that. So I think what is the way how I would expect to be used, like whenever it makes a certain decision, I would always ask, show me the reasoning. How did you land to this decision? And if reasoning makes sense, okay, so I would agree.
Yep.
I think this is the thing needs to be validated. You need to make sure that it's not just a hallucination. While, you know, it might be fascinating and you might say like, wow, but there are always extremes. This was one extreme. Yes, it helped. Tomorrow, it may provide some other diagnosis to another person, and it might be like an absolutely wrong. And if you just follow that blindly, then you may end up in a worse situation. You see what I mean? I mean,
yeah,
the reasoning is the most important part.
So the humans are still going to be involved.
yeah.
I think we have to.
Anyway,
We should definitely do an episode on AI ethics, because we've definitely led right into that, because that's such a super interesting area, as you're all picking up.
Well, we should.
I'm keeping quiet. I'm keeping quiet.
We should have a guest in that space coming up soon. But Dilshat, no, that was great. Thank you very much for joining us. That's about all we've got time for. Andy Nishbelt, thank you as well, and I hope you enjoyed the show. Cheers.